everybody. Cooking in the kitchen with Sylvia again. This time I'm going to show you how to cook sweet and sour pork. Of course, it's a Chinese dish that a lot of people like. We're going to start with our pork. I've got about 2 pounds here. I'm going to just show you how to cut it, but I have about 2 pounds of pork shoulder that I cut into small pieces. They're not too big. We're going to add some seasoning to marinate this meat, and that's going to take about half an hour. If you have a little more time, an hour is going to be good too. It's going to soak into that meat and give it a lot of good flavor. So I'm going to go along. As I go along, I'll tell you what we're going to add. So this is just to show you how to cut the meat pieces. If you don't know how to do that, get yourself a nice big chunk of pork shoulder and just cut it like this. Just cut it into chunks. So you don't need to be real precise, but you also don't want the pieces too big because they're going to fry up, but you also want them to cook down. So just cut them into chunks like that. They're about an inch and a half. And pop them into your container. It's good to have a container that has a lid. If you don't have one with a lid, don't worry about it. So here we go. For your marinade, we're going to add a couple of things. Number one, about 1/4 cup of soy sauce. And this is just, we're going to, I knew I was running out of soy sauce there, so got my other bottle here. We're going to add 1/4 cup of soy sauce. Just toss that in. We're going to add some white vinegar. This is also going to tenderize our pork. Just 1/4 cup. Okay. I'll leave that there for later. And then we're going to add about 1/4 cup of sugar. This is my little 1/4 cup. I don't want to mix that with the other one. Okay, and then we're going to toss in, I have 4 cloves of garlic, but we're only going to use about half. The other half goes into the other part of the recipe. So I'm going to put in about half of that. Okay, so there's your garlic crushed, clove chopped, and about half a teaspoon of salt. Okay, and then you're just going to mix all of this together. Okay? So just put that in there in the bowl. Take your vinegar and your soy sauce and your sugar. And all of this is going to be marinated for at least half hour. If you're in a hurry and you need to do the recipe, half hour is good. If you leave it a little longer, maybe an hour, it'll tenderize it more and it'll also flavor it a little bit more. So here we go. We've got the garlic, the soy sauce, the sugar, vinegar, and a little salt. So I'm going to cover this and I'm going to put it in the refrigerator for half an hour. Okay, then we'll be back and I'll show you how to prepare the rest of the recipe. Okay, so our pork meat has been marinating for about half an hour. Like I said, if you leave it a little longer, then it's going to take in more flavor. But this is good enough for cooking. So here we go. We want to drain off that extra meat. Now you can either take it off carefully and put it in a container, but I want to go ahead and just pour it in here and drain off as much of that liquid. You can discard that leftover juices there because they've done their job. Okay, so never mind that little bits of garlic is stuck on there, no worries. While that's draining, I'm going to show you how to put together the batter that we're going to use to fry this pork. Okay, so I heated up a pan with some oil that we're going to do for our frying. So I'm going to go ahead and bring that up to like a medium to high heat. Not so hot that it's going to burn, but warm enough to get you started. Okay, so our batter is simple. Okay, it's just going to be some cornstarch, a little bit of flour, some baking powder. Oh, I forgot my baking powder. Hold on. A little baking powder and an egg and some water. So what we're going to do is we're going to add about half a cup of our cornstarch. I've got it here. Doesn't have to be exact, but at least half a cup. Okay. And we're going to mix to that about half a cup of flour. Okay. I'm going to combine those two. We're going to add just a little bit of salt, not a whole lot, probably about a quarter teaspoon. Mix that in there. And about half a teaspoon of baking powder. Okay. These are all dry, so mix these up. Our oil is heating up, so by the time we get these coated, we'll be able to start frying. So, now we're going to beat our egg, just one egg. Just beat that up a little bit. Now we're also going to start with about half a cup of water, and then we'll add a little more as we go. I don't want to get it too thick, too thin actually, but I want to get some consistency going. We're looking for almost like a pancake batter. Not too thick or not too thin. But we want it a good consistency so when we dip our meat, it'll hold on to the meat mixture. See, I didn't even use the whole half cup. The whole half cup. I just started with just a little bit. That's about what we're looking for. Okay, kind of drippy, but it's okay. It's a good consistency. So we've got our water. We don't need any more. And we've got our eggs. Now we've got our meat. Now I prefer to put the meat in there individually, but one of the things I want to do is I want to coat this meat with a little bit of cornstarch. Okay. Before we fry it. So spread it out in a platter. Doesn't have to be coated all the way, but it does help if you coat it. This helps the batter stick to the meat. Okay, so let's get that there. Just give it a quick little toss. If you have a bigger bowl, that works too. But this is fine. And all we're doing is just giving it a little drizzle to help the batter stick to our meat, and I can tell that the oil is getting ready there. Okay, sorry about the mess. Sometimes that happens when you're cooking. Okay, so here we go. We've got our batter there. And if you need more, because it depends on how much meat you have, then you may want to make another batch. So sometimes I make extra because I have people coming over. So here we go. You want to dip it in there. You can see our oil is nice and hot. Grab another bite. A couple bites won't hurt. Just give it a quick little drench. And you're just going to keep an eye on them that they don't get too brown. That's why you don't want your pieces to be too big, because you do want them to cook. Now if you have bigger pieces, just to be on the safe side, after you fry them up, you can pop them in the microwave for about a minute, and that'll cook them down to be sure everything is cooked inside. So there you go. Dip it in. So you can see how nice and golden it is. That was my first one. You don't want to overcrowd your pan, because you want them to get all crispy. So give them a little space. Yeah. Over. Let them cook on that side. This is really hot oil, so they should cook down. Give them a couple little turns to be sure they're cooking. Like I said, if you don't want them to burn and you want to rush your cooking, you can let them brown and then pop them in the microwave for a minute, and that'll still cook the inside. That's why you don't want really big chunky pieces. You want them just about bite size, and they'll cook nicely in the flame as you fry them. You can also do this with chicken and also with shrimp. You use raw shrimp, and you gotta clean it, you vein it, dip it in the batter, and fry them up. So you can also make sweet and sour shrimp. This is sweet and sour pork, which is the more popular one. And you can also do chicken pieces, but make sure it's boneless chicken. That's chicken breast, cooked faster. And a nice little turn. And to cook through. Careful. It's popping. Paper towel, plate, platter or plate, so you can put them there as they start to cook. And you can bring them out. batter that I think you'll like to make your sweet and sour pork nice and crispy. Okay. So I'm going to fry up the rest of the pieces, and then I'll get back with you and show you how to make the vegetables. Okay, here we go. I fried up all of the pork in the batter, and I'm leaving it here for now. I let it drain on the paper towels. So now I'm going to show you how to prepare the vegetables. Okay, so we want a pan. It doesn't have to be this big, but it has to. You do need a little space because you're going to add all that meat and you're going to add the vegetables. So heat up your pan. We're going to add about a tablespoon or two to the pan. Let that warm up. And this doesn't require a whole lot. Okay, I'm going to show you what we're going to do. We got about half an onion, the leftover garlic that I had, that's 2 cloves of garlic. We have about 2 tablespoons of tomato paste. I have 3 bell peppers, green, yellow, and red. So just chop them up in chunks. You don't have to be real small, but just chunk pieces. I do have the juice of a pineapple, whole pineapples that I've chopped. Actually, I just left it in the can after I drained out the liquid. We're going to use the liquid for our sauce, but I just went in and put the knife in and cut the pieces while they were still inside. I just need them in chunk pieces, so you don't need them real big. Just, you know, use your knife and chop them in there. So we've got a can. I think this is a 20-ounce can of whole pineapple. So you can save that for later. We're going to use that for garnish, and some spring onions. This is about half a cup. We will need probably a little bit of cornstarch and some water to help thicken our sauce. Sometimes it thickens on its own, but we always have that in case we need it. Okay, we will be adding a little bit of sugar. So as our oil's heated through here, we can put in our onions. We can add our garlic. I don't want this to burn, so keep your fire kind of to a low to medium. You don't want it high. All we're really doing here is just warming up these vegetables. We'll start with the onions first, soften them up a little bit, and we will flavor things as we go. Okay. You're going to need about, for this recipe, even though the pineapple is sweet, you're probably going to need to add a little bit more. So we're going to add some soy sauce, a little bit of salt, and a little more sugar. So I'll start with about a 1/4 cup, because you don't need that much sugar, as far as, even though it's sweet and sour pork, the vinegar is already inside the meat. So there's our sour, sweet and sour. So here we go. We're heating those through. Chunky piece of onion there, that's okay. So we're going to add about a 1/4 cup of soy sauce. Maybe a little less, we don't need a whole lot. Those onions getting through. We are going to toss in our bell peppers. I want to heat those through. It's nice when you can alternate different colored bell peppers. You could just use one type, or you could just use the green ones if you like. But I always like the red and the yellow too. Makes the dish more nicer. Like they say, You see, the food looks delicious and appealing. This recipe, of course, is also delicious because of the meat. So sometimes we eat with our eyes. So just let those vegetables heat through. You don't want to overcook them, but you also don't want to burn them. But you do want to just do a quick little stir fry. If you have another type of pan, that works too. If you have a wok, that also works. Let that heat through. I'm going to grab a little bit of sugar. This is about, not quite a quarter cup, but I'm going to start with just a little. Put that in there. The soy sauce, the sugar will help caramelize everything. Raise my fire up a little just to get it going. That's a lot of vegetables. This will probably take about 2 or 3 minutes to cook this down. Keep this tight. And go ahead and put in our tomato paste. And just kind of get it softened and mix through. And the juice of the pineapple, get that in there. Okay, so let that heat through and finish cooking some of those vegetables. Like I said, this is a really nice recipe. We are going to toss in a little bit of salt. Even though there's salt in the soy sauce, we need just a little bit more. The tomato paste, etc. This is about a quarter teaspoon, just a little. Okay, so let that come to a nice little boil. Starting to boil there. That's good. You can add a little pepper if you like, but with all these onions and bell peppers, you really don't have to. Okay. Now I've added a tablespoon of cornstarch to this little bowl. I'm just going to put a little bit of water to mix that. This will help thicken our sauce. Even though you have the pineapple juice in there and the sugar, it needs just a little cornstarch to thicken it up. The vegetables are cooking. They're not overcooked. They're just tender. Okay, there we go. Let's pour in that cornstarch. Let that thicken up a little little bit. If you need a little more, you can add a little more. Start with that. Okay, there we go. You can see how it's getting thicker. That's what we want. That's what's going to bind to the pork meat and the vegetables. Like I said, if you want to thicken it up just a little bit more, you can, but this is usually about what you're looking for. It's not too thick and not too thin. So here we go. Now we can toss in some of our pineapples. Save a couple for the top of your dish. Toss those in. And here's where we can bring our two at a time. There's a nice little coating. I actually made extra, so I'll probably be making another batch of vegetables for later. This was actually about 2.5 pounds because I was showing you how to cut the meat, so I used a little extra. So just toss it in gently, just to get that pork coated. And we're almost done. There we go. You can turn off your fire. Save that for later. You can see how easy this recipe is. I hope you get a chance to try it. I'm going to have to ask my husband to get me a bigger kitchen. So here we go. I just wanted some room so I can place our sweet and sour pork. Make this nice platter. Might not even have room for all of it. Just quite a bit. So there you go. This is my sweet and sour pork recipe. You can toss a few spring onions, and if you like, you can even add a few more chunks of pineapple to garnish your dish. I hope you get a chance to try this recipe and many more of the other recipes I have on my webpage. So hope you get a chance to enjoy it. Sweet and sour pork with pineapples and bell peppers. Enjoy!